Hello, I'm Joan. I'm a Canadian family physician who also works as a restorative medical educator, facilitator, and coach. I create spaces that rehumanize the work of healthcare. I'm creating this podcast to remind myself, as well as anyone else working in a helping profession, that when you are working and caring for your human patients, you are the other human in the room. Hello there, healthcare humans. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of The Other Human in the Room. I'm here with a relatively new acquaintance, hopefully to become friend as time comes on. And I met you, Susan, in the greatest of circumstances. If folks have listened to more than one episode of my podcast, they will have heard me recently raving about this choir experience I've been having. And Susan is very much part of that same choir community. And so I thought it would be fun to have her on to talk a bit about some of the origin stories of that and just how practicing joy and singing can be one of the keys of helping us stay more human in healthcare. So with that as a preamble, Susan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me on today. So my name is Susan Thouin, and I am a physician practicing right now in Toronto. I practice palliative care currently. I did emergency medicine for about 10 years and then changed my scope of practice into palliative. I also am a mother of two girls. I have a 14-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old daughter. So entering into the crazy times of parenting teenage girls, but doing our best there. And I'm married 20 years this summer. So, yeah, happily been in Toronto since med school. So I did a medical training here in Toronto and originally from a smaller town in Ontario. And in terms of my practice, right now I'm practicing in hospital right now in palliative care. We recently were really fortunate at our hospital in Scarborough to have a donation from a family that allowed us to open up a palliative care clinic, which we didn't have before. And that allows people who are still mobile. They have a life-limiting illness of some kind, but they're still mobile and able to come in to see us in the clinic. And so that's been a great to see the evolution of that. We just started that back in February, and it's been a great team building experience. And before that, I was working in the hospital, and actually during COVID, doing all home visits to people in their homes, practicing palliative care. So from emerge to palliative, that's been just an interesting journey in and of itself. But for now, that's what I'm doing in medicine, and definitely enjoying it.
Wow, yeah. I'm curious about what invited you to shift. So those are in some ways, some could, I guess maybe if you went from NICU to palliative or I don't know, or OB to palliative, that's the sort of its own arc. But it also in terms of the mindset of emerge, which is try and capture and what can be fixed and reversed to avoid death, of course, and emergencies being that time where it's really let's try and avoid death at all costs, and then palliative not just being about death, but having almost the flip view of we can take time and death is a part of what we're chatting about here in an open way. What caused that shift to happen in your life?
It's interesting because it was a big change of my scope of practice and what I was doing. But it actually was a pretty natural change in some ways. I mean, definitely emerge was a very exciting, busy, pressured place, but we definitely help people every day with managing symptoms and seeing them often, in having one of the worst days of their lives. They're not always, sometimes it was a more lighthearted, that's still a challenging time, but say, a child had stuck some Lego in their ear and we had to pull it out or something. But for many people though, coming in, they're feeling at their worst, they're really worried about things. And um, I really enjoyed or found meaning in being able to, even in the busyness of the situation, take a pause and help people to, feel like we're going to help them. We're going to help them get through this, take that time to speak with them. And I realized over time that, like, just that I wanted a little bit less of that pressure situation. I wanted to have a little bit more time and to help people like I am now, also going through very challenging times. Often the most challenging time they ever will face for themselves, and also having so much interaction with their family, for sure, even sometimes more so. And just getting to know them a bit more over time. I did train originally in family medicine and did enjoy that continuity of care, but had specialized with my fellowship and emerged. So had practiced that just to get my skills up. And but I did know, when I was in the emerge and patients would say, "Oh, are you accepting patients?" and this sort of thing. And I knew I definitely spent a bit longer with people than some of my colleagues did.
Uh,
So it was nice to be able to, with palliative care, be able to have more time to get to know people. And some of my patients, we like to get involved at earlier stages if possible. And I've been helping them, some of them, like for over a year or 2 years. Like, it just kind of depends on the situation. Of course, there's times where it's things are quickly moving towards end of life, but it's very meaningful to support them in those ways too. And then I also have had myself, like, a change in my health where it was with I have multiple sclerosis, and with a mobility issue, and that in the emerge it was getting a bit challenging sometimes with the back and forth and the long hours. And so I was looking for, a transition to something that was a little bit more manageable for me too. So that's a whole
yeah.
other, that's a whole other can of worms, but that was another reason why I have made a transition to something that was, just a little bit more physically manageable, but overall just very, very meaningful in the ways that I can help people and continue to care for people, which is definitely really important to me in medicine, and just kind of the language that we speak, being able to bring that into a different art of medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually really love hearing stories of people changing jobs, changing trajectories, because I think there's like I do some teaching and I feel like there's this real pressure. Like med students, it's like, what's the track for the rest of my life? And then residency, what's the track? Am I doing? I'm a family physician as well. So like PGY3s, which one? And like as if it really, then you're married to that and it's set in stone, and divorce is illegal apparently in this context. So like you have to stick with the same track. And yet, I would say in particular, family medicine, there's like so much flexibility. And I love hearing, I think it's so important to hear stories of people changing with when your desires change, when your needs change, and that's very possible. So no one has to feel like trapped in one version of medicine or like one kind of job, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I think and I feel very, very fortunate that I was trained as a family doctor and just was able to, um, just have such a diverse exposure to so many things, and even emerge a kind of jack of all trades. And it allows you, to cultivate kind of something that will work for you and have meaning. And I mean, I've also been able to, I worked in a retirement home where people had, almost everyone there had advanced Alzheimer's. And even in that, like, just being able to learn from them, and also practice definitely palliative care in that setting as well. And I agree, many of my colleagues from emerge too, at a certain point I'm noticing, um, are also looking for other, like, they're still practicing emerge, but looking for other things to kind of balance things out a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. We're very fortunate in medicine to be able to do that with our degree and our experience. And yeah, I think, like, going into what you had mentioned about the choir and kind of our connection, it actually came about a bit when I was figuring out a transition kind of point
Oh,
in my career. Uh, I was still practicing Emerge, but I knew that that was going to be changing, and probably about like 6 months or so before that, it was a challenge to make a change, just in the sense for me that the Emerge, the people I work with, like such a part, it felt like a part of my
yeah.
family for about 10 years, in the team and everything. And I knew that I wanted to find something else besides just medicine to bring me some balance there, and to just have a bit of an outlet, but to still be connected with colleagues. And interestingly, while uh, looking for that kind of, I guess I would say, like, just something for myself. When at that time, my children were, both of them were under 10, and just getting to the point where things were, a little bit less crazy at home with like little kids. My younger daughter she had joined a rock choir, and we were loving going to see her concerts and everything. And then she had convinced my husband, who's always singing at home, to join the adult version of the choir for women and men, or anyone over 18 years of age. And so he joined it. And then I was seeing how much fun they were having. And I knew I just wanted to find something for myself outside of medicine and outside of the kind of the daily being a mom role. And so I tried to join him for his practices, and we got a babysitter. But I remember one time one of the kids were sick, and like the next practice, I think I was actually called in, which usually didn't happen, from, I think it was the retirement home. And I was like, oh geez, this isn't going to work. And then kind of went back to trying to figure out what I could do to join a club or join this or that, just to have something for myself outside of all the regular stuff. And um, at that time, I was noticing, just through different colleagues, especially like women physicians, noticing that they were starting to just get a bigger group, kind of a little bit, becoming a thing where we just had this shared experience. And even online, kind of in a group, people across the country were gathering, giving advice, sharing, certain challenges that they might have in medicine, but then also common interests, whether it was to do with travel or fitness or style or whatever it was. And I thought that, it just gave me a little bit of an idea that maybe I would approach this organization, and they're called Voices Rock Canada, to see if they would consider starting a choir, because, and actually for women physicians, because I knew I had the connection with all the colleagues from the Emerge, and just like friends and people I've gone through med school and residency with within the Toronto area. And I approached the founder of Voices Rock, Cheryl Bauer. I asked her about it, and she's usually very supportive of like new ideas. And she thought, that's great, Susan. If you can, find the people, then let's give it a try. But we first had to let the artistic director at Voices Rock, who runs the practices and does all the arrangements. His name is Anthony Bastiananon, and we had to approach him to kind of get his buy-in. And when I let him know about, like, a choir for women physicians, he kind of looked at me strangely and asked me a lot of questions, and was really not sure how this would work. But they gave me a mandate to get, I believe, 25 to 30 people to sign in, and they would give it a go for a pilot project. And just by getting some messages out, emailing colleagues, friends, from med school, my training, different things like that, we were in 2019, we were able to get enough people, and they gave us the green light to do a 12-week pilot project. And and actually, like, I mean, I had a couple of my friends join. Most of my closer friends said, I can't sing. I could never, do this. So most of the people that joined were just people that heard from someone else. Like there was nothing that I did in particular, to pull them into it. And so it was really interesting that there were so many people right off the bat willing to give it a go. And so we started meeting, yes, in September of 2019, and we had 12 weeks to prepare for this concert that we were doing at a local church that we were practicing at. And I don't know all the choir terms, but I've been starting to learn them. I guess it's called off book. We were able to learn, I believe, 10 songs in 12 weeks off book. So we weren't looking at our music. And, and it was great. I mean, it was hard. Our director, I remember, like he kind of didn't know what to do with us at first. We were very, very serious, just kind of listening to him, staring at him. He was sweating bullets, and none of us knew him really. Like I just knew him from directing my kids' choirs and seeing him up on stage, but I didn't know him personally at all. And at that time, and yeah, I think it was a different experience for him, like staring at an all-women physician group of people. But eventually, like the ice was broken, and we just really started to gel, and then we did that concert, the first concert. We actually dedicated it to one of our colleagues from Scarborough who had unfortunately died as a result of intimate partner violence. And we dedicated it to her, but raised money for her 3 children as a result of the concert. So it was very, very meaningful for us to sing in her
Yeah.
memory. And it was just fabulous. Like the concert, everyone in the audience was mostly our family friends. It was super supportive, and I think once we were finished that, we were just completely hooked, and we realized, just how much fun this was, and just that, even with our early rehearsals, like it might have been really challenging learning some of the pieces, but having that hour and a half to just totally decompress, not think about work or our other responsibilities at home or meetings or whatever else we had. And we would leave with so much more energy than we came with. And interestingly, like our practice, I was on, and it still is on Monday nights. And Mondays can be, like at least in the Emerge, it's one of the busiest days of the week. And often I think in other practices, office practice too, everything's kind of been building up over the weekend, and people need help on Mondays for sure if they've left it. But somehow, like everyone, was able to get there, and was able to put all of that aside. And I found that quite amazing that they could. And after, after we had our concert, they gave us the green light to continue with this choir after the pilot. And we I believe for the next round, starting in like February 2020, we had, I think, about 40 people had signed up at that point. And then, everyone
Something else
knows what
happened.
happened. So we had like a few rehearsals, or about a month of rehearsals together. And interestingly, like when we started hearing about COVID, or the cases, in the first case, like in Toronto and this and that, like we thought we just had to worry about washing our hands. And we actually did this hand washing video for the OMA, to this, like our Anthony, our director, he did it to the song Happy by Pharrell Williams. And
I
he
feel like
did
I
like
must have
a
seen
parody.
that.
Yes, he did
That's
like a
cool.
parody or we did a parody on it. And it was all of it, we like took videos of us like washing our hands in a sink and like showing our hands while we sing. And meanwhile, we're all standing like right next to each other. And this is like, I think the week before the world shut down, and we're just like, oh, this is how long, just wash your hands and this and that. And little do we know. But I think the week following that, we were transported to Zoom choir practices, which, I mean, Joan, they do work. And
Yeah.
Anthony was able to um, very quickly make that transition, and it just got, his equipment, everything got better over the years. But um, yeah, I can let you know more about that. But the being able to continue this community into this early days of the pandemic and throughout it, I think it just had a profound, and it was like just this hugely important
Yeah.
experience for all of us involved. That was a very scary time at the start, for everybody, everyone in the world. But we also had in our choir, many emerged physicians. We had, a lot of people who are seeing people face to face, and then also others who were having to quickly change their practice to more virtual. And we would meet on Mondays, and just kind of the look of everyone's faces, and just having that ability to talk about things. Just sometimes our director would just play us something on the piano, and we'd all just listen. Sometimes people would turn off their cameras because they just needed a moment. And then other times, we'd be singing. And as you sing on mute because like the speed isn't quick enough for you to sing together. But it really, oh gosh, like I would just say the choir, the music helps so much, but the community at that
Mm.
time, and then now, as we've known over the last 3 to 4 years, it's through different ups and downs. Like the pandemic is much more, but the really tough days of it are much more behind us now. But there's lots of other things that are going on in medicine that, and everyone else's lives now that we have this community. It's been huge. So just as a supportive network, and ability to kind of lift each other up. And as you mentioned, like experience joy on many different occasions, that has, I think, helped everyone in both their practices of medicine and just in their life in general.
Wow. Yeah. It's actually to picture having that in, especially like, well, not even just especially the first lockdown, but probably especially some of the subsequent lockdowns, but to still have that like line of connection.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, I'm just imagining, so you confirm or not, but like a lot of the other medical spaces at that time, extremely understandably, not a critique, but descriptive, they were like very focused on COVID and, very focused on risk, hot debates about airborne and droplets and what should be done. And like there was a lot of intensity. Um, and I'm just imagining you have this other space where it's still with physicians. So it's still, but you can actually relate to each other in this other human way. What did that feel like going through all these bumps of the pandemic with that?
Yeah, it was just this safe landing space that every Monday at 8 o'clock, we grew in numbers, which was crazy. Like
Yeah.
throughout this, like it was, people started to bring in their friends or this and that, just, or colleagues, just because they just could feel how impactful, and how just supportive and safe this place was. And just how much being able to find that find that joy during a very dark time, like how important that was for all of us. So as I said, like we had a couple of little projects where we did one video that our very first one, where Anthony put together an arrangement for a song called Rise Again. and it's sung by the Rankin family. It's written by Leon Dubinsky. He's from Nova Scotia, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and it we kind of just, it was pieced together, but there were people on it who were, kind of stepped out of their emerge shift and recorded it in like a closet at work, or we were at home trying to do virtual with our kids, trying to do appointments, but our kids were at home, of course, like everyone had to do that, working from home. And I think for us, kind of what I'm getting at is like we did this project, he put it together beautifully, and we were able to share it with, people all over the country, and it actually ended up going viral. So it was quite far reaching in the early days, and I think just like reading the comments about it, like there would
Mm.
be a nurse on there who said, "I listened to this song, to you singing it like every day before I go into my shift,"
Oh,
or
lovely.
it's like my anthem for getting through my day, or different people who are at home saying this, or you know um, elderly people who are just weren't able to get out of their house, see their family, were feeling very lonely, and we so I think for us, doing, not only did that project help us a ton to be able to have, just to be able to feel like we could help people through music, but it helped ourselves so much too. I think it was just, yeah, to be able to see that spread and just try to rise people up, try to raise people up, try to lift people up, try to, it definitely uplifted ourselves too. And I think just having a different focus, we're all, being in medicine, many of us like type A personalities, we like to have kind of, plans and goals and
Mm.
things to still work on. So I think that having something that we could put our focus on outside of the stresses of the pandemic and the uncertainty and everything you were talking about, just having that piece with the choir was just huge to be able to have, to be able to put that sort of thing together. And we did that when we did another more uplifting, video to a song called Brave by Sarah Bareilles, at another point where, and that was kind of when things were starting to open up, and the kids, it was right before the kids were going to go back to school. I believe it would have been in, I think, because I don't think, yeah, I'm trying to think if it was like the first time they tried for a bit in the fall
Yeah,
of
like with masks
2020,
and
or
everything.
like, and they went back for like, with all their masks. It
Mm.
didn't last very long, but it
Yeah.
was kind of like a, almost to, because a lot of us on here had little kids going back into their schools, and it was just, for everyone, just continuing to be brave through this, like whether it's the kids, whether it's the healthcare workers, whether it's anybody going into their jobs at the grocery stores, or just for people who are at home and like keep going. So I think just having those little projects for us, where we could sing and do something together, really helped us, but we also hoped that it helped other people. And then our community just kept growing and growing, and it's just been a, huge source of, strength for each other. And then just I mean, as we all know, the pandemic dragged on, and there were so many kind of ups and downs, and then I think just knowing, even though we couldn't be in person for, a good pretty much couple of years, it was just this so nice to have the routine of meeting, and, having, and just seeing the same familiar spaces, and having some moments at the end of our practice, just to be able to, he gave us some time to be able to like connect and share some things.
Nice.
And some days were, totally lighthearted, and some days were times where people really needed support.
Mm. What was it like getting back and singing in person after that?
Yeah, it was super strange. I remember, I mean, we took it very, very seriously with, depending on how well what the regulations were, what the public health was recommending. at first we were testing ourselves before, before going to practice. And then we had kind of a map out of the church, and it was almost like one person per pew and like spread out. We had air filters in the church. We were all masked for sure. And most people were wearing like the N95 masks too. And then we had our own we call ourselves Voices Rock Medicine. We had our own Voices Rock Medicine like COVID protocol that we ran by like one of our connections in public health, even when we just to make
I love
sure,
that.
because it doesn't sound so great if there's a huge um,
Yeah,
doctor choir that's like a super spreader event. So,
right.
and of course, we wanted everyone to stay healthy, and it had impacts on like if we got sick for not be able to see our patients or this and that. But yeah, but it felt so good, even though we were singing through masks, and it felt surreal for sure when we first. And I should actually taking a step back, when it was our first time actually was it was in the fall when it was still nice enough. The thing was, our rehearsal started at 8 p.m. So we met outside. We were outdoors,
Mhm.
which was even better.
Yeah.
Still masked on the lawn of the church, and it actually was quite lovely. We would be singing, and like people would be walking by and just
Oh,
stopping on the sidewalk and just listening. They're kind of, what's going on? But eventually, it started getting darker earlier, and our
yeah.
practice started at 8. We did go into, I mean, the only way we hadn't decided to go inside yet. So the only way we could do it was stay out there. And so we did go in the dark. Like, eventually people got, they had those headlamps that you use in the nurse
That's amazing.
to look at, like when you're doing a procedure.
Yeah.
Everyone brought those in, and we were like looking at our sheet music that way. And our director was playing, the keyboard, and he had a speaker and stuff to try to project it. So yeah, I forgot about that for a moment, but that was kind of how we started. And then when it started to get really cold and like under zero, and it was we were kind of like, okay, maybe it might have been end of October or something, and we ended up going inside, and we were really spaced out, and we got about, I think, a month and a half inside, and then that would have been like then that Omicron kind of wave came
Yeah.
after, like right in the start of or the end of 2021, I guess, in December
Yeah.
into the new year. And
Hmm.
so we had to go back online after that again. But we had that little taste of it, and it was wonderful. It felt, yeah, just hearing each other just it felt so good. And so we kind of, we were on online again, which had its benefits for sure, because we could see each other's faces. We didn't have the
Mm.
masks on, and we could spend a bit more time. Our director would highlight different people in the group, and we got to know each other really well, compared to, in practice, you're really focused right in on, you don't really have much time to talk. So, but yeah, I would say we kind of, we were back online for a while, or for several months, and then things died down in the spring a bit of 2022, and we were actually able, in June of 2022, we did a concert, which that was in person. We had very strict like COVID testing and everything before the concert, and it all worked out. Some people were masked and some weren't, but we mainly learned everything online, and then had a couple, just a few rehearsals in person
Yeah.
to sing together, and then did a concert. But it was there's nothing like the feeling of, yeah, having everyone by you just to sing, which was wonderful to have that feeling, to finally be able to do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were you on Canada's Got Talent? Because wasn't voice like this choir
Yes.
was on Canada's Got
Yes,
Talent?
we were. Yes, yeah.
Celebrity. Hello.
No. Yeah, that's a claim to fame, but it was, yeah, that was quite an exciting experience. Um, our director found out about, and Cheryl from Voices Rock found out about the experience, and we ended up, we submitted like uh, a kind of a track just for an addition tract or whatever. And that was one of the doctors was able to get us outdoor space outside one hospital in North York where that was our first time. Again, we were like spaced out outdoors. I think it was in August of 2021. And we just did this quick recording outdoors and sent it into Canada's Got Talent. And then they allowed us to go on there and sing a song. And everything was practiced again. It was, practiced virtually, our song and everything. But we ended up being able to, like, the first time we actually sang, I think, or maybe once we got a chance to sing together before the actual show in person, but it was very minimal. And so, yeah, most of it was all done virtually. And then we
Wow.
ended up getting that was, and I would say that was, I mean, just a very unexpected thing, but it really lifted us up. Like it was still like the pandemic was super dragging on,
Yeah.
and we got to, go to Niagara Falls and very strict again. I think we were PCR tested like 2 times and swabbed like every, moment before we went on. And so it was very, very strict, but it felt quite surreal again, like just being able to actually do something like that in person and have that experience. And I think, I mean, it definitely bonded us even more together. And I remember, yeah, our director's wife, who does amazing recordings for us. She's a professional musician and singer. And we did practice a little bit ahead of time. Like, she helped us with some of our moves for being on stage, and just so we weren't standing like straight, straight and not swaying or doing anything like that. And I mean, I loved her saying, or she told us, basically told us, you ladies are, you're beige. Don't be beige. Don't show up beige. You show up with your sparkly, glittery electric blue. And so she like just, and it's kind of one of those things that I think about still now. It's like, don't be beige, Susan. Be electric blue. You got this, And
That was good.
it's just like one of those things that I just remember getting ready for Canada's Got Talent, and we all kind of think of it that still, but just even though we were practicing our moves, in our bedrooms online, like we couldn't be together getting ready for it. It really, again, like, even though we had our busy jobs, all of us working, it just gave us this thing to, just to have a little bit of something else for ourselves. And it really is something that I think is so important, like for anybody, whether you're in medicine or for any stage of your life or any kind of profession, or anybody who's at home, anything. Just, I think for us, it's just having that community and having something like this for yourself that you can just get away from in your mind, or just sing, or it could be any kind of dancing, exercise, whether it's painting or anything, but just having that thing for yourself to take you out of the pressures of everyday life. But then also, if you can find a community that can be part of that, I just
Yeah.
think that helps so much with the pressures that we have for us in medicine. I think it helps with our mental health. It helps with our physical health.
Yeah.
I think medicine in general is just, music in general is medicine for the soul, basically.
Mm.
I really think it is. It's just
Oh,
so important.
100%. I heard someone recently, I was going to this karaoke night, and this other person's like, it just feels like a massage on the inside every time I
Yeah.
sing. And I was like, I'd never thought of it, but I was like, that's correct. Like, even just like somatically, it feels very good to sing. Even if you're not singing on key, or
Oh,
you have
yeah.
no idea about, like, there's something about moving your voice up and down, and also with music. So there is like your body's like resonating with the beat. It just feels delicious.
Oh, absolutely. And I
Good.
think, like, for different, I mean, you've probably heard it from Anthony and different people who have helped us with Voices Rock, but they just focus so much too on breath and just how important like the
Yeah.
breathing is and moving that air. And I think like if you, I mean, I still need to practice that a lot more, but I just think um, just that in and of itself, like it just helps you so much just to be able to, you're singing, taking those deep breaths with your, moving that diaphragm. And I think it just
Yeah.
really helps.
How do you think that being in this choir has changed, if at all? How has it impacted how you are with patients or with colleagues? Like, how has it changed how you see yourself in your physician role?
Yeah. I do think that it has helped me for sure. I mean, I have even with some of my patients that it depends on the situation, but some of my patients that I've, gotten to know better over time or their families over time, I have even shared some of the music with them. If,
Cool.
I think that, you know, it just again it was uplifting for them and that sort of thing. But I often it's not that, but just for me realizing and suggesting some things to them that are um, that could help with their with what they're going through with these transitions in their lives with some very hard times. Just I think being able to suggest some things outside of, as I mentioned before, just like kind of the science of medicine, like this, this medication to help with your pain, or this to help with your sleeping, or this to help with that. Also bringing in some other options for them to find comfort, to find some other form of wellness for them. And so I think even if it's not, I have suggested lots of, or had families bring music into somebody's hospital room so they can listen to that, or different things like that. But still, just even helping them to find something that's going to help, like to pass the time and to bring them some peace and comfort. And whether it's somebody coming in to read with them, somebody coming in to play a game with them, or to read, if poetry is important to them, if something else is, I think it's just opened me up to realizing just how important having a different outlet is, and if they can find that. Or even, I mean, some people have, they'll have little children or grandchildren, and just talking to them about doing some art therapy, or doing something else that I've come across too. Um and I think, yeah, I just think figuring out how important this has been for me personally, professionally, and then just for my community of choir sisters. I think I just want to share that with others too, in whatever way that I can. And so I think by having this, and it's able to like mix that with my practice of medicine, has been great.
I love that. I have a couple of questions, but like we said, like I can cut this part out or not. I was wondering, are you comfortable if I ask you a couple of questions about your MS diagnosis?
Yeah,
Or
sure. Yeah.
okay, because it's personal, right? So I don't want to just
Yeah.
assume.
No, that's okay.
I was wondering how your experience of your body going through illness and changing abilities, how that has impacted how you practice medicine now.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's been, and it continues to be a journey with
Yeah.
MS for sure. I was diagnosed 20 years ago, so I've had it for quite some time, and that was actually when I was second year medical student.
Mm.
It's really been with me throughout my medical career. Early days, I was able to kind of just ignore it, to the extent of not having to, ask or make any accommodations. I mean, went to see my specialist and took my medications and did that sort of thing, but still, went through the rest of med school and residency training, which can be, quite demanding. I had a couple setbacks with exacerbations, but only once had to ask for an accommodation, and I had an amazing program director with my emergency fellowship year, who was extremely supportive and was able to, just make a couple changes for a rotation that I had that had a tremendous amount of call or on call, where, instead of doing 2 weekend nights, I did one, and then just, made things up in different ways. But it was great to have the sense that somebody could help to make things a little easier. And then I would say, I didn't, I had been doing pretty well, but probably about 5 or 6 years ago, or maybe even a little bit longer, I started to have some weakness and changes with my gait. And my specialist, my neurologist, and my physiatrist, like, both felt that I should be making some changes with my career, which is very hard. Medicine is such a,
Yeah.
it's just like the language we speak, the thing we know to, it's so much of our lives that it's really very hard to make these changes. And but I finally did get kind of the courage to ask somebody about that. And unfortunately, I have found, with a couple of times in my practicing physician career that I asked for some accommodations, uh, they weren't, it was very difficult. Like, the main thing was, I had my specialist had even written me a note about it. She just wanted me to not do um, the full overnight shifts, because those, like, just from managing kind of fatigue and not getting burnt
Yeah.
out. But unfortunately, it was quite a challenge to get anything changed there. And really, that's why eventually I had to leave, because that couldn't be changed, or accommodated. And uh, and then yeah, and I've had a couple other things like that. And I think, and so, yeah, I've been very much supported lately, which has been wonderful. I really appreciate all my colleagues and people that I work with right now, in terms of that, in terms of just supporting to do what's best and what's going to help me to be able to still practice, which is really important to me. It's hard to, because I could go in a total different direction, but I really love helping people in medicine. So I think, like, in terms of how it's, yes, with my patients, like, my experience with my disease has definitely um, allowed me to have more and more, like, understanding of what they might be going through. And I sometimes can relate it to myself. For sure, my patients see me needing a mobility device, um, and are, everyone's been, like, super helpful. Like, when I was, visiting people at their homes, they're always like, I didn't want them to have to worry about me, but they were always so lovely with, carrying my backpack up the stairs, or helping me to sit down. And then I could be focused in on, like, helping their family member, and in whatever way I could. But you realize how kind and caring, like, even though I might have had something going on with me too, just how it was all part of us helping each other. But I think now that I've come to kind of accept my situation a bit more, and trying to uh, trying to look at how things could change a bit for the better. It's even little things like, at the hospital that I'm at right now, uh, there you go in, and, there's bathrooms that have a sign for, a wheelchair. And, you try to open the door, and it's like such a heavy wood door, and
Oh no.
I have, like, I have my cane, and I'm trying to push it open and maneuver, and I have, like, my way of doing it, but I'm just thinking for other people, like, that's very
Yeah.
hard. And it's just not unlike going to, stores on my street that, uh, whether it's the way the stairs aren't, there's no railing, or the door that is, it does have an automatic door, but it's been broken for 2 years, or, different things that you start to notice. So I think that in of itself, just thinking about my patients and how, I could maybe, as a physician, I mean, like anybody could, but maybe in the hospital, I can like advocate a little bit more for making it easier for us, or making things more accessible. Or so I
Mm.
think I'm kind of looking a little bit more in that way of trying to help use, my lived experience a bit with this now, and just how I think things could be just, much easier. For people, and not, it's not a huge deal that you have to, like, just little things that could be changed to make things a bit easier. I went to a talk recently where somebody was talking a bit about this, and it was even, they were talking about, an analogy kind of you have the, so say you have you have stairs, and then you have like an accessible ramp, and it snows, and the stairs are covered, and the ramp is covered. Shovel the ramp first if that's all you have time for, because at least
Mm.
everybody can get up it, right? Like, just
So
think
good.
about ways to, just to make it a little bit easier for people, and of all different kind of limitations and this and that. So I think that's maybe a little bit more where I'm just like, my disease itself is hopefully going to be able to allow me to help others, just by my experience and what I'm hoping I can do to help other people, make it a little easier.
Yeah. And I certainly hope not just yourself, of course, but all of us, whether we are temporarily abled or some of our abilities have shifted, like
Mhm.
as a healthcare system, it would be beautiful to come to a point where you wouldn't have to necessarily leave a certain job because of accommodations or not. Like in an ideal world, our healthcare system, not only, of course, for our patients to be able to have it accessible so they can receive the care they need, but also that everyone who desires to spend their life offering care to others would be supported to do so. That seems like a good sustainable way to keep our healthcare system running.
Considering we need more,
We need more people.
workers, we need more, yeah, physicians and
Yeah.
other allied health professionals and nurses. Yeah, you would think it would, but it's such a culture of just, and I've been the person who's pushed and pushed and go, and just keep go go go, and it's probably
Yeah.
in some ways been to the detriment of keeping myself healthier, or that I could have kept myself a bit healthier. But it's just kind of like the mentality that we have, and it's thing is,
Yeah.
if you're not, it's like all of a sudden you're not able to do that, then, well, sometimes
Yeah.
unfortunately there's not like a middle ground that people feel you're contributing enough. So I hope
So
that, I
good.
know there are people working towards trying to change that, but yeah,
Yeah.
I hope that that can improve, hopefully in the near future, because I definitely hope that, people, other students going into medicine or thinking about it, or residents going through it now, I hope that they're, and there's, as you said, many different circumstances for people, but I hope that they can have a little bit of an easier path if changes can be
Yes.
made.
I also share your hope. And like to just do a tiny soapbox, I just think like literally what you just described, you mostly described how your choir shifted through this pandemic, but also like the healthcare system and the whole world. We know that things can change and change quickly. And we know that we can do that when we have each other's common interests in mind. For example, the health of keeping everyone alive and not infected with COVID. So
Yes.
it's like, imagine we had that same mentality around everyone's abilities being accommodated. And like maybe some of it has to be incremental if like you got to build different structures, but like we were building hospitals. I don't know what to say. Like we things can happen quicker than you think if there's just the reminder of everyone's humanity at the center. So I have a strong faith and hope in that as well. And hopefully, even conversations like this and just more people recognizing, like, oh, no, I'm human and I'm here in this workplace. Like,
Mhm.
my hope is that that can also help it shift
Yes, and I mean,
fast.
we just have, so whether we can walk, run, type speak, there's like, I
Yeah.
mean, we put so much into our training and our learning, and as you said, like with medicine, we can shift so much in what we do, and we're so fortunate to be able to, and in family medicine in particular, like we can get into these different areas, and then we have a lot to give, and it's really unfortunate if we can't make a space or a way for us to continue to contribute to patient care, and we
Yeah.
have a lot to give, just because we might have a disability or something that's putting a little bit of a block. But I agree. I hope that in the future that can just be looked at as almost more of an opportunity for something
Yeah.
even better that we can offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just reading an article. I can't remember if it was in CFP or CMAJ, but they're talking about the benefits like that as a medical community we ought to be celebrating and in some ways maybe even recruiting or like what are the benefits of a healthcare system that include healthcare workers, clinicians, physicians who have disabilities. And like there was like a whole list and it's sort of the like so that because what you don't see, you don't see. And so if you have a lived experience, you see it differently. I
Mhm.
also think there's something about like what you just said about how there were times where your patients were able to help you in micro ways. You were still holding the role of the healthcare provider. They weren't like prescribing you medicine or something, but those small exchanges that where they recognize your humanity and also that it feels good to help people. Like I actually I'm tying it to even what you said before, you guys creating the video and it feeling good to do it for yourselves and then it's feeling good to help others. Like it feels good in this bi-directional way that
Absolutely.
like I just think we need to think of more whatever it is, whether you live with a disability or not, but like when we are more blatantly human, I think that's vulnerable and I understand that it is, but there's actually some beautiful opportunities that can be therapeutic in its own way, even for our patients, actually.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was a different experience, but I remember being in a patient's room, and I can't remember exactly their background, but it was something where they just, they saw how I was walking, and I was at the bedside or whatever, interacting with the patient, and then the family just asked if they could, you know, just say this one kind of saying from their tradition,
Mm.
and one of the daughters, I think, had asked, just said, if we're able to put, like, if she could put her hand just by my knee or whatever, it was just such a different experience. But I stood there, and there was like 4 or 5 of them in the room, and they did that, and that was their way of kind of, even though their loved one was going through the time that they were, and I was trying to help them with feeling the best they could in their comfort measures. They wanted to give this back,
Oh, it's so
to me,
touching.
to see if it could help me a little bit. And yeah, and I think with palliative care, in that sense, I do, what you say really kind of resonates. Like, it's just this. I mean, obviously, the nurses, the physicians, the personal support worker, everyone's coming as a team in to try to help the patient and the family. But I think you get to know each other, and it's really like a it's a community in and of itself. Just and I feel like those experiences do a lot for us too. So they do a lot
Yeah.
for us, and it's a back and forth for sure.
Yeah, it almost seems it's like a little bit taboo to say that you like enjoy your work sometimes. Like, it's supposed to just be a slog.
Yeah, well, everyone will be like, palliative? That's so hard. Like, how do you do it? And I'm like, yes, there are very
Yeah,
challenging times. And I mean, that's why having the choir is like a release and a way to kind of do
yeah,
some self-care around that. And of course, also not with, but just with your team, being able to debrief is so important around some really,
yeah,
cases for sure. But yeah, it is, just so much that, like, I learned so much from my patients, from their families. They've just, yeah, having those moments, which are very, just very meaningful times that people are having, very difficult at times, but I feel very, very fortunate and very lucky to be able to be in this area of medicine, for sure.
Mm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, before we started recording, I told you how I try and keep it to 45 minutes, but it usually goes over an hour, and that's what's happened now. So
Yeah.
I just could
Gonna
talk to
tie you
people forever.
up.
Thank you so much for being so generous with your time,
Oh, of
Susan.
course, yes.
So I usually like to end the conversation, just imagining folks listening in, and not all physicians, not even all in healthcare apparently, but people with a common interest in finding what it takes to stay human within systems and cultures that forget our humanity. And I'm just wondering what you would like to say to them. Not some, doesn't have to be the most wise thing you ever said, but like, what is it that you want to, just to take pressure off? Sometimes people feel like it's a pressure giving question. So I'm taking the pressure off. But like, what's something that you would like to say to folks who are wondering, how could I get more joy and humanity in my life?
I would say to have more joy, to have more humanity in your life, take time for yourself to take care of yourself. Sing if you can. Find a moment, listen to some music, and sing your heart out if you feel up to it.
Mm.
But moreover, try to find that community that you can have a safe place, have people to lean on, talk to people, be able to lean on them when you need to, and then give your support to them. But I think just finding something for yourself that can get you through the tougher times and bring you joy when you need it is really, really important.
Mm. I find the thing that people will say is, but isn't that being selfish, Susan?
No, it is not being selfish at all. Now that, I don't know, as I'm getting older, I've realized how important it is to take that time for yourself, and then you can be so much more valuable to others, so much more able to spend good quality time with other people if you've taken the time to care for yourself.
Mm. Amen. I figured you'd have a good answer to that. And I know that's the thing where it's like,
Kind of
oh, I guess I should.
very
And I was like,
sweet, but I kind
oh, so good, Susan. Thank
of
you. Well, I want to say a personal thank you for signing your kid up for choir,
oh,
and then
goodness.
pitching, and even pitching hard, though it was so baffling to consider that, all like, what, female physicians, that sounds like a scary bunch. No, thank you. But because, if you'd never done that, not only would we never have had this conversation, but I wouldn't have had some of my like favorite experiences in the past year in Voices Rock, because it was just
Well,
really,
seeing you up on singing that solo, and we're gonna get something going for
you're
sure.
gonna get, I think there's the community is the community, and
Yep.
that's been built,
Yep.
period,
100%.
and it lives in us now. And I think that's really magic.
Yeah.
And so I guess if people are listening and they are female physicians in the Toronto area and the Ottawa area,
Mhm.
then there may be opportunities to
Yeah.
join Voices
And
Rock.
the Kingston likely as well
Oh,
in
yes, that's right.
September. So yeah, so there's you can check out the website. It's voicesrock.com, or just, I'm sure there's probably a colleague that you might know that's part of the choir and can come in and just even experience, one rehearsal and see if it seems like it's something you want to do. And as our director says, anyone can sing. He can teach anyone to sing. So you don't have to feel like you can't sing in tune, or you don't have to be able to read music or anything like that. So that's the joy of it, is that we have many people who have really never sung before, but are getting a lot of, wonderful experience out of it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
And yeah, for everyone else listening, thanks so much for listening as always. And talk to you next week. I would love to take this work deeper with you. Visit joanchanmd.com today and discover my growing menu of options for restorative medical education to suit your learning needs. I offer one-on-one coaching, customized workshops, and self-study courses that allow you to connect not only with my work on a deeper level, but also with other healthcare humans just like you. So if you want to start humanizing your work in healthcare to a deeper level and do it in community with others, please visit joanchanmd.com and find those options and what fits you and your life today.